Now I'm very excited to welcome back a very experienced professional handicapper, a longtime friend of our show, Mr. Doug Upstone from DocSports.com. You can follow him on Twitter at Doug Upstone. And this segment is being brought to you by BetRivers.com for a 100% sign-up bonus. Please use the promo code ODDS22. Terms, conditions, and location apply. Doug, how's life treating you, my man? Summer's half over.
It's way more than half over, except for those of us that live in Arizona, right? I mean, that goes on till
that's why I say
November for the most
That's
part.
why I say it, because like when I lived back in the Midwest, you felt it was completely almost over in August, but the truth is it started June 21st. So basically you're halfway into it on August 1st.
True.
You know, it goes to not even actually. So it's actually probably a day or two before half over. And as a kid, you don't feel like that. You're already back in school, but the little summer vacation gone. But hey, for us, football's upon us, man. I'm very excited. How are you feeling about it?
Yeah, I'm ready to go. I've been, obviously doing a lot of research, both college and pro. Excited for for the upcoming season, and there's going to be some crazy stuff going on. Things we're going to talk about. That they're all good, but and all we can do is do our best to what we think is going to happen. But as we know, that changes in a heartbeat. Could be one injury. I mean, look at today. Speaking of. Tim Patrick of Denver went down today. Third leading receiver for their team in terms of reception, top touchdown maker. That changes a lot of what they like to do, right off the bat.
Yeah, he was a sneaky like slot type receiver. I think he was playing a number 1 or 2 with the injuries, but I was wondering where they were going to put him this year because you have Jetty there and obviously Sutton, right? So I was thinking he'd throw him in the slot, and then the Penn State guy, I don't know where he's going to go. He was hurt mostly all of last year. Can't remember his name offhand. But yeah, it's just injuries. You're going to see some injuries in the preseason. You're going to see some coaches taking the blame for it. It's going to be very interesting, like we saw with the Ravens last year. Holy cow! Old Harbaugh just ran him into the ground before the season started, and you know how that worked out for him. But maybe he's learned his lesson. We'll see. But I'm excited to get into it. And that's funny. You make a point, you can study so much in the off season, but sometimes stuff just doesn't turn out for a team. And, you kind of feel like, man, I put a lot of hours into this that I didn't have to. And that's why I kind of just do the main things. Try to just give people bullet points and summaries. And, I kind of think that's enough.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think you need to go crazy. Read every single team in every single magazine that's out there, because for the most part, after a week or two, okay, I'm not saying the information is worthless, but it's not as useful because now you have a track record of what can happen as the season progresses. And so then it becomes the true week by week leagues. So, some of those things, and injuries come about. I do those same types of things. I try to gather as much as I can, but I don't overthink it.
And that's a great point. I like to go through the exercise of why did I like this team come week 3, week 4? And then you find out a team, maybe you lost your first bet on them or your second bet, but at the same time, are you going to get off of them, or was this just the bad luck? Was it just the way the ball bounces? You got to figure that. Maybe they had some bad plays. Maybe all your handicapping that you did in the off season is true, and it just didn't show the first 2 weeks. So we have to remember that. And that's kind of how we try to find value within the weeks 3 and 4. Strength of schedule factors in too. Speaking of a different sport though, one you love very much, one I love, we went to games together, Doug, baseball, man. Let's talk about that. There's been a lot of crazy moves. I thought Wilson Contreras was gone from our Cubbies. I thought Hap was probably going to go, but at the same time, you wonder why they didn't, but I think I have a reason why they didn't. And I somewhat agree with it. What is your take on some of these moves?
Well, go. Why don't you tell me what your reasoning is? Because I have a thought on that too, and see if we match up or differ on that one.
Let's say you're working in a city and the housing market dipped a little bit, and you're selling your house because you got a job offer for more money, a lot more money in another city. And then the market, obviously, you can't control that, and you're not getting what you want for your house. So you have 2 options. You can rent the house out. It's almost like you're renting the market for a minute, just hoping it'll come back. because you're not getting what you think it's worth and what the value you perceive in it. That's what the Cubs are doing. They're taking a risk. And if you're not getting good players for Wilson Contreras, which might be the best catcher in baseball, I understand that move. The problem is Wilson's going to come back pretty darn hard with his agent on you, and they're going to want a pretty massive contract for putting him through that in the first place. So be prepared for that. But there's the only way you can win out in this deal. I mean, the arbitration, I think, gives him $18 million next year. But obviously, you can make him a lot happier by giving him something right away. I almost think that you have to get something for your guys. And so you have to take that risk. And if you're not getting trade offers, then maybe the market wasn't as big in the first place. So that's my thoughts.
Yeah, I think the Cubs overvalued what they had. The Wilson Contreras is essentially having a career year. Okay, he had a couple of good years early on, when the Cubs were good. But he's at this point of his career, he's 30 years old. You get in that stance every day for 130 games a year. That takes its toll, with rare exception. So I just don't know that the market was that strong. And in terms of, let's just say, even some of you don't see a lot of catchers moved typically at the trade deadline. And Ian Happ is a nice player, but is he a really good player, or is he anything much more than average on a team that's contending for a World Series? I think it's debatable. I mean, again, good player with the Cubs, okay, but I don't know what that means right now, other than because it's the Cubs. I mean, we've seen this over the years when the Cubs with the various losing teams. So I just don't think there was that as much demand as what they thought there might be for these two guys. And so, with Contreras, I mean, I like him. Like you said, he's having a fantastic year for him. But is it really necessary? If they're going to trade him, I'd say it's going to be in the offseason now.
For sure. And a great point. I look at the Yankees, the Mets, the teams that have the money. They could have picked up a guy like Happ that's probably not as good as their 10 guys, right? He's below them. They're already kind of deep. No one was really in a bad injury problem because Tatis is coming back for San Diego. They already made some moves over at San Diego, obviously the massive one with the Brewers. And then you look at San Fran's not a real contender anymore. There's just no team that, maybe Seattle or something, but do they want to give up their farm system that they've been working so hard? That's kind of where it all comes up to. It's like, why would I take a risk on some of these players? So I think it's just the fact that these teams were a little deeper this year, and it's best to wait. Fair enough?
Yeah, you cut out there for 1 second, so I didn't hear exactly what you said. But I think the other point that I think comes into play with all of this is the fact that now there are 3 wild card teams. So that you add that to the mix, teams, yes, they're looking, but also they probably like what they have at the same time. So they want the one right guy. And I think that is a different dynamic that we saw this year. And I think we'll see it just going forward, unless somebody's really desperate, as you said, because of injuries.
All right. No, makes total sense to me. And the biggest shocker was Hader for me, but then you look back and it makes little sense. I guess the fact that the sad thing is the Brewers can't pay him, or they don't want to pay him because they don't have the money to pay him and then others, right? Isn't that where it all comes down to? They're not the Yankees. The Yankees never made that trade.
Yeah,
and that's
it's just odd though that they traded a lefty for a lefty.
Yeah. Well, it's the future because they think the other guy might be cheaper anyway, and he's not even going to be a closer. He's going to be a setup guy probably in Milwaukee. So lefty for lefty.
I agree. It was a strange trade, and I don't know the thing. And again, who knows? But if they're not going to pay him, then move him in the offseason. Okay, you can still do that. And or you got to the trade deadline. If somebody's looking for a closer, like you would have expected, like the Dodgers, what the Dodgers would have been, that would seem to have been a good choice. And the Dodgers have assets to trade, but it didn't happen. So, hey, congratulations to San Diego. That's what I say. Nice job. They went all in, put all those chips in the middle of the table, and here we go. And now, are they better than the Mets and the Dodgers still? Well, that's another question.
Not yet, but we'll see what injuries happen now all the way through September into October. Right. And I will say that you made a great point. The Brewers are in first place. You're in first place, and you do this now. They complete better in the offseason. It makes absolutely no sense to do this while you're in first place. I don't care if you have to pay him. You trade him in the offseason or do your best. You can also still get value. I thought they still had control over him for a year or so, right?
Yeah, through 2023. That's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
So he's a free agent at the end of 2023.
Yeah, so they had control, and so they
Yep.
could have made this deal in the offseason, and that was the big thing right there. It's not like they lost complete control. So huge mistake.
The other thing I wonder, and there's no way to know this, is, he's pitched for him and actually for any closer. He has not pitched well the last month. His control has been off. His fastball has flattened out, not getting the same movement, and guys are swinging less because of his lack of control with the fastball. Guys are swinging less at the slider, which is typically starts at the knees and just, falls off the table, into the ground more often than not. Guys aren't swinging it as much. So they're kind of forced him to throw the ball up a little more, and they've hit him. Okay. He's given up more walks, more hits, everything. And I wonder, there's no way to know, but if they think that maybe they've gotten as much usefulness as they could have out of him, not to say he still won't be good, but he was awesome for all those years.
He's not that old, and he's under 30, isn't he?
29, 30. Yeah, it's right in that range.
Yeah. I don't quote me on that.
I don't know either. I mean, I'm as baffled by you as the trade. I'm just trying to think of.
Well, here's the thing: when this happens and you're in first place, you put him on the DL. You put him on the DL, give him some time off, give him a mid-season break. Then bring him back. You don't care about now nearly as much as obviously when you need him in the playoffs. It's just blows my mind. All right, we beat this thing to death. Let's go to the NFL, buddy. And this is a question that I asked you last year, but it's a fun question. And you can obviously give me the obvious if you want, Doug, but maybe you can go a little bit off the beating path here. Give me an NFL team that didn't make the playoffs last year and you think could this year.
Well, one of the things that we're going to do, and just so everybody knows, is that, before we did this, Kev and I talked, about what we're going to talk about, and basically what he wanted to talk about was very similar to like the menu at the Cheesecake Factory. Okay. We had a lot of topics to discuss. So with that being the case, with this one, I'm going to tell you that we're going to talk about some of these teams who we think might win the divisions, or I should say over under totals. And one of the teams that I think that will make the playoffs, and I'll discuss further, is the New Orleans Saints. I think will be back in the playoff picture this upcoming season in the NFC. Like some of the things I did, I'll go into it deeper in a little bit, but I like them. Who do you like?
Well, the Vikings is pretty obvious, and everyone can say the Chargers, right? The Baltimore Ravens. Oh my God! So it's like we could like go crazy with that, but let me just, if I'm going to go off the grid, I'm going to say the Jaguars because they have a new coach that's been there before, and this is like going from worst to playoffs, which is very difficult, which the probability is against you, but that's possible in that division. I think Tennessee is a little bit fortunate last year. I think the Colts, Matt Ryan, we'll see. Is Matt Ryan the guy that we saw the last couple years, or the guy when he had Kyle Shanahan behind him? Kyle Shanahan was really, really, really good offensive coordinator. I think that a lot of Ryan's success was based on that, and he doesn't have Kyle Shanahan. So, I think the Jaguars have a good shot. If I'm going to go off the beaten path here, I did bet the Vikings at even money to make the playoffs. So I think the Vikings are a pretty obvious one. I guess if I was going to be, I'm not going to say the Detroit Lions, or definitely not the Bears. That'd be crazy. 3 in that division. I think that, I think the NFC is pretty set. I think the Vikings is the only one. I guess in the East, you have a very tough Eagles team now that made some moves, and the Cowboys are the Cowboys. I just don't see the Giants or Washington doing it.
No.
The Saints. The Saints. Duh. Okay, sorry, yep. The Saints. Yeah.
Yeah, that's my choice. I mean, Minnesota would probably be my second choice, from that standpoint. And it's, and with more teams in the playoffs, I mean, obviously it gets harder. And the NFC compared to the AFC is more of haves and have-nots.
I agree. A lot
So
of
I think it's more difficult to, as what you're talking about. There's just not the depth within the conference in the NFC currently.
especially when you lose guys like Russell Wilson and Devontae Adams. You're like giving your best players away to the AFC there, which is pretty insane. How about this? Let's do this. And I agree, the Saints 100%. Give me an NFL team that made the playoffs last year, but might not this year.
Real simple for me, and I'm going to talk about them also, the Las Vegas Raiders. And I'll start it by saying this: the Raiders made the playoffs last year, 10-7, won their last 4 games to get in, and they finished the season with a minus 65 point differential. Think about that for a second. Minus 65. If you look at the standings over the last several years, if a team has any number like that, they typically win 7 or 8 games.
100%.
I don't think the Raiders are going to go back this upcoming season. I'll explain why further in a little bit.
I 100% agree with you. And if you look at the Pythagorean win totals, the Raiders were one of the bigger teams that should have won a lot less games than they actually did last year. Very fortunate team. You could toy around with the Bengals. They are pretty fortunate. I still think they get in. And then the Steelers, is Mitch. Which Mitch are we going to get? The Mitch that the media pounded on the last 5 years, or maybe a decent Mitch that has a better coach. So we'll see with Steelers, but they were a little bit fraudulent last year too. Let's be real. It is Tomlin though. He seems to sneak in there somehow. Let's get right into these divisions then, my man. We'll start with the NFC North. As you know, I'm the lowly Bear fan that bet the Bears under 6.5 wins, and I did get plus money on that. So it's at minus 150 in most books, under 6.5. Now, I am not going to steer away from that. I just hope that my Bears can either be 9-8, 10-7, and make the playoffs, or I'm really happy that they're under 6 because they need some draft picks. I hate the 7 and 8 and 9 win teams that don't make the playoffs. Hate them. But we'll stick with that. And then the Vikings to make the playoffs was my other play, as I mentioned earlier. Anything in the NFC North.
Yes, then now you can't call me a homer on this one because I got the things lined up. I got the facts behind me here, but I still think the Packers, are good. Okay, the over under is 11 at most sports books, and in fact, their odds to win the Super Bowl actually dropped over the last month from 1,200 down to about 1,000. I still think Aaron Rodgers, even at 39, is still one of the 3 best quarterbacks in the NFL. Some may debate that, but that's my opinion. But where I think that they're still going to be strong, Matt LaFleur does a great job in terms of preparation for his teams in the regular season. So I like what they do on a regular basis. The loss of Devontae Adams is going to matter. But I think that the offensive line might be a little stronger this year. I think they'll still depend on the running game, and they're going to have Robert Tonyan back at tight end. So I think that's a key piece. I think this team is going to probably be a little more dependent on the tight ends, especially early compared to what before. And that defense, the Packers have not been known for defense, but I believe this year they're going to line up 7 number 1 picks going into this for this season. I think the defense is the strength of the team. So I don't have a problem taking the Packers over the 11 on this one. Now, if you're asking who's going to win the Super Bowl, everything I just said great about Matt LaFleur, I take away once the postseason starts, Kiev, because he has proven he has not gotten the job done in the playoffs. So, but for the regular season in this division, I like the Packers over 11.
All right. So here's the one thing. I like their draft a lot. I couldn't believe the players they got there. I had Christian Watson in my rankings as one of the better, top 3, top 4 receivers going out. I really did. He's tall, he's fast, amazing measurable. Of course, he played for Division II college, so we have to see how that is when he gets jammed by the cornerbacks off the line. But I was shocked that they got him in round 2, to be honest. I had the Packers slate him from round 1, but geez, getting a guy from Devontae Wyatt. Holy cow. I had him in probably as my best defensive tackle. And so I'm like, Jesus, Packers, man, what the hell gives? If him and Lazard is going to be running the receivers, I appreciate. You got Sammy Watkins there. I'm not sure what's left in the tank, but One thing I will say is the Packers did have the worst Pythagorean win totals. They're only 10th in offensive points per game and 10th on giving them up on defense. They're really a 10-win team instead of a 13-win team going by Pythag. It's kind of the opposite of well, it's the same actually what you said for the Raiders because it's they overachieved. But I always say that there's clutchness involved in this. You have to. So when I'm doing my season win totals, I take the Pythagorean and I take what actually happened and I kind of mush it together a little bit because there's clutchness to football. It doesn't, if Aaron Rodgers needs to get the touchdown, he can get it. He's one of those quarterbacks you trust. So I'm not so sure about going over 11 wins. I think they're in the playoffs. I think it's between them and the Vikings because I also really like the Vikings draft. So I will a little bit disagree on your season win total, but I think they're in the playoffs. Let's move on to the next division, and we're looking at the NFC South here. And you said the Saints are going to make the playoffs. I bet them plus 400 to win the division, Doug. So, I mean, I took over 8 wins on the Saints. I am all over the Saints. I think Tampa did 2 nice things since I made these bets. They got Akeem Hicks from the Bears, but what they're going to learn is Akeem Hicks doesn't like to play 17 games. He'll show up when he, at times at the same time, he's kind of like that replacement for Ndamukong Suh, but they lost just a ton of people over in Tampa. Lots of depth. Fournette's getting a little bit older. Tom Brady, obviously the man that never ages. Something's got to give. New coach. Now that's a big thing here. New coach. I think that they're susceptible. I think there's some injury. They get unlucky on some injuries finally. I think the injury bug will hit them. And then you got the Saints there creeping up that could take that division. I think plus 400 was a great value. What are your thoughts on the NFC South?
Yeah, I like the Saints too. Now the Saints also have a new coach. So that you still have that aspect. And, we'll see how that all plays out. But I just look at their offense. I mean, it's hard to say this, but Jameis Winston, after last year, it looks like he could actually be a productive quarterback. Not that he wasn't productive. The problem with him, he was always counterproductive with all his interceptions. So, but that seems to have gotten over that. So I think that's a big deal. Now he's going to have Michael Thomas back. Got a great deep threat with Chris Olave from Ohio State. I think this offense is going to be good, and it looks like Kamara is not going to get suspended because now his trial even the hearing was moved back until October, and so the trial date's not set. So I think he's going to play the whole season. So I think those are all positives. The defense was ranked 7th last year, Kiev, 4th in scoring. They had some problems against better clubs, but I just think this team's going to be ready to go. And I think it's over. I think they're 9.5, as I recall, and I think I'm gonna take over 9.5 with this team, and as you said, with an outside chance to win the division.
Wow, is it up to 9.5 now?
Yes.
Holy cow! Maybe it was over 9 that I took then. I'll have to look back because I would be shocked if it was at 8 and I got that much value. I think it was probably over 9, but I still like them to win the division. But there is one thing that's going against me, Doug. One thing. It's Jennifer Lopez, because every year Jennifer Lopez gets married, Tom Brady wins a Super Bowl. I heard that stat. I think it was from VSiN or somewhere. J-Lo might be ripping up my ticket this year, my man.
I got to write this down, so I got to put it in my systems so I can make sure to follow that as we go along, especially as the years advance.
We know who to blame now, right? We know who to blame. That's where we can go after. All right. Let's move into the NFC East, Doug. You have the floor. Who do you like in the NFC East?
I know I sound chalky here, but after years of doing this and trying to always, let's just say what I mentioned before, overthink things, I'm just going with what seems to be to me the most obvious of plays, and the same thing with the Dallas Cowboys. Now, this is a good example though here and Kiev knows this, and many of the listeners I know this as well. But for those that don't, this is why you have multiple sports books, okay, the Dallas Cowboys, because depending on where you go, they're either 10 or 10.5. That's huge, okay, in terms of what to bet. So with the Dallas Cowboys, I like them to go over. I think they're going to be fine without Amari Cooper. I think they got more than enough talent on the perimeter to get the job done. Do these players have to be more consistent? Yes, they do. Than what they've shown in the past, but I think they will. I think this team will mature. The offensive line might be a little bit thinned out, but typically Dallas always finds a way to have a strong offensive line. I don't think it's going to change. Dak Prescott, proven winner. Super Bowl quarterback, kind of starting to take on the characteristics of Tony Romo, to be perfectly honest, at least from this chair. But I still think they have more than enough. The defense last year was top three I believe, in points, I think in yardage and among, I think, the top five in terms of points allowed. So that's still a stout group. I think the division is winnable. They're going to win. They got 4 wins with Washington and the Giants. They split with Philadelphia. I think they'll be able to take care of business. So I'm going to go. Ideally, I would say the 10, okay, to go to 11, to get to 11. But in this case, I still like the Cowboys here, either at 10 or 10 and a half to get the job done and win the division and fail in the playoffs again.
You Carson Wentz hater. Come on, man. Washington? Jeez. No, man. Here's the thing. The NFC East has the easiest schedules in football because they play the AFC South and the NFC North. And so there you go. Poor Bears, poor Lions, poor Jaguars, poor Houston. And, it's just nothing up top there that really, I mean, Packers, yeah, I guess. But, the Packers can have some hiccups. It is, I like both really over. I think the Eagles and the Cowboys can do it. I already bet the Eagles, and I gave that away weeks ago over 9.5. And just to let you know, you might have to empty the bank account here, Doug, because it is at 8 on DraftKings, minus 140 on the Saints here. So DraftKings, a book that is widely available in Arizona. You have a great shot to grab that 8 if you're looking for it. But the fact that you said 9.5 really makes me feel good about it. So thank you for that. I like the Eagles. I'm not going to get crazy with the Eagles winning the division either, because I think Dallas can win it again too. They're a great regular season team. They don't even need a coach really, McCarthy there, and I don't know a ton about Sirianni yet. They were kind of that team that beat up the bad teams and lost against the good teams because they had the running game. They could pound the bad teams to bits because they would just run over them, and the good teams they couldn't catch them really because Hurts wasn't really quite that quarterback. So that's where your bread is buttered with the Eagles. Hopefully it'll be the same this year from a betting standpoint. Let's move on to the NFC West. And obviously, the NFC West was the best conference, if not still. I would argue the AFC West for now. But you had this Cardinals team that started out amazing. Kyler Murray was like even money or something, not even to win the MVP. He was probably juicing. You're probably laying juice back there about game 8. Then they just completely falter. And then you got the Rams that, lost a few guys, but they'll make their moves midseason. Von Miller, they lost, but so what? That's the guy they picked up. Odell Beckham. Well, they got Robinson now. They're pretty okay right there in LA. You got the Niners with maybe one of the best coaches, in my opinion, in Shanahan. And I completely am mind blown about what they're doing with Jimmy Garoppolo there. I think they had a winning quarterback, and that could be their downfall. But they must know something more than me, because that rookie did not look that good last year. And then it's not really up in the air because Seattle's bad, and they're supposed to be really bad unless they make some sort of a move. But like maybe they get Jimmy Garoppolo, but I don't see the Niners trading to Seattle. But I'm gonna go. I think that I have no play in this. I couldn't find value. I just felt like it was all correct.
Well, I'm going to step in then and fill the gap, and I'm going to take, not a surprise, the Los Angeles Rams, the Super Bowl champions on this one. They are, I believe, listed at 10.5. And, I look at what they did, and they went, we mentioned about going all in. Well, this is another team that went all in, and it worked out for them. Great decisions. Everything came out perfectly for them. That does not always happen. We see that in sports all the time. But you look at their roster, though, they didn't lose much. I mean, yeah, there's a couple guys. Von Miller, came later in the year, so he was a starter, yes. And, and Odell Beckham, that's still up in the air. But, and Whitford at left tackle. But I think Whitford, he was 40 years old. He's replaceable. Good run blocker and such. But they're still set up as more of a running team. Matthew Stafford will throw interceptions and make some really dumb plays, but he still has Cooper Kupp. So if they can run the ball, they got Cooper Kupp, and they got more than enough talent. And I think though you'll see also, by the way, more usage of the tight end with Stafford now that he's more familiar with what he has on this team. So I like what they do there defensively. You got Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey. Heck of a place to start. They got lots of different guys that fill in, play a number of different roles. I like what they have going there. And this team now has the confidence. Hey, you know what? You win a Super Bowl, you got a lot of swagger, right? You bringing back basically the same group of guys, and you have Seattle, who's definitely going down. As you just mentioned, San Francisco seems a little iffy with at quarterback, even though San Francisco has dominated the Rams the last several years. I think they should be able to split with them. And Arizona, I don't know. That team confuses me as much as any in the NFL. I'm not sold on Kyler Murray being maybe a top 10 quarterback. Cliff Kingsbury, So, I look at them. They got a tough schedule, the Rams do. No question about it. But I just don't. I look at this team that is comfortable with who they are. They believe in who they are. And I think they'll be able to step up. And I think they'll win the division, probably get to 12 wins, maybe 11. Okay. I think this is a team that still has a lot going for it. Am I picking them to win the Super Bowl? I will not. But you know what? I think this is still a loaded team that has a lot of talent that believes in itself.
Yeah, I don't disagree because I have my number probably closer to 11 for the Rams. So I think they have a great shot to win this easily. And we'll just see what happens with San Fran. That's really the only thing I'm worried about. And I'm not too worried about the Cardinals either, unfortunately. You know what's going for you? You got Cooper Kupp, and he's the best receiver in football. You can check every fantasy draft right now. It's Cooper Kupp going off the board. Yep. First at wide receiver. So that gives Christian Watson hope because Cooper Kupp played for like Eastern Washington, FCS Division II type football. And so did Christian Watson. So maybe a little rookie of the year here with Christian Watson with a guy like Aaron Rodgers. I think it's priced in the, 50 to 100 to 1 area. Ooh, I might throw some beer money on that. What the hell?
There you go.
Let's move on. We have the AFC now, and we're going to start with the AFC North. Obviously, lots of craziness going on with the quarterback situation in Cleveland here with Deshaun Watson. We don't need to get political, but at least know for now it's 6 games. But that more people are going to come out because that's what happens. I don't know. It's like is this for like everything? I'm confused. It's like what else could make this change? You just don't know. Really ugly situation. And then you have the Baltimore Ravens that have the 4th place schedule that still has Lamar Jackson going for them. Really scratched my head getting rid of Marquise Brown. I thought that Marquise Brown was maybe a distraction there. He kind of wanted the ball more, and that's not the type of offense that they had. So the Cardinals picked him up because of the DeAndre Hopkins suspension, really, in my opinion. But then you have the Pittsburgh Steelers that always seems to sneak in, but I'd rather fade Mitch than be on him unless I'm getting a big fat price. Comeback player of the year, possibly for Mitch, as I discussed in my last episode. And then, Cincinnati Bengals, and the Bengals very fortunate last year, but they had some really ugly losses against the Jets last year. I remember they got just pounded against the Jets, and I think there's another bad team that beat them last year too. And then they did beat the Chiefs, and the Chiefs had them dead to nuts both games, and just coaching mishaps and having Mahomes just, you're supposed to be coasting, kind of game over at halftime, and then blew it in the playoffs. That's what happened with them. They actually should have almost lost the Tennessee game if it wasn't for those ugly interceptions that Tannehill threw. Yep. And the Raiders game was pretty close. It's like I can't be super high on them. So I'm going with the Ravens to win this division. I got plus 200 on it. That thing went down since I bet it, but I still like it. I think you got a 4th place schedule. You got a motivated team. I like what Lamar Jackson's saying in the offseason. And I took Lamar Jackson at MVP at 20-1 because give a guy of that power with a coach of that great, like John Harbaugh, with a schedule of a 4th place. Everything's just leading up to this team winning it.
Yeah, of the picks that we're doing here, this is the one that the division I thought was the hardest. Baltimore was certainly one I considered. I actually liked Pittsburgh under, but Mike Tomlin's never had a losing season. Now, if he's going to have one, it would seem like it would be this one. But I'm going to give the guy the benefit of the doubt here. So this is just more of a lean with Cincinnati on this one to go over the 9.5. One of the things that I mean, let's face it, Burrow's the real deal. Okay, there's nothing here not to like about him. His swagger, everything about the guy. He raises the level of his team, just carries them on his shoulder when needs to at times. I think their offensive line they addressed a number of those issues, so I think they're going to be better than 23rd in rushing this upcoming season. If that's the case, that'll be a big help, because I think defenses will look to take away the deep pass that was, that they used so often, so effectively last year. Their defense, though, was underrated. They were 5th against the run. So that front 7 was really tough last year. Doesn't mean that's going to be the case this year, but I think their secondary will be somewhat improved. Baltimore seems to be kind of in flux a little bit. They're not really going anywhere, it seems. Pittsburgh certainly has taken a step backwards there. It's kind of like the lesser of evils. Cincinnati as a team is the one team that really does seem on the rise. So, kind of a weak choice here, but I'll take the over 9.5 with the Bengals to get the job done. And, I just think it's a solid ball club that is, like I said, the big thing is it's on the rise still, at least to me.
Yeah. I mean, the Bengals is an issue for that division. I think they're probably the second best team in that division, I would have to say. And I even though they're fortunate last year, they fixed their offensive line. They signed 3 studs from free agency, and that is more for sure than drafting guys. You can just see how the Bears are dealing with Tevin Jenkins right now. It was a high draft pick from last year. Oh my God. But they made the right moves. And so maybe now Burrow is protected. That's going to be good. But Cincinnati with the first place schedule in the AFC does not leave me a good taste in my mouth. So that is a big concern for me. And that makes me go towards the Ravens. Let's move on to the AFC South. And then obviously the Titans had home field advantage until they didn't. Lots of anger. They trade AJ Brown, which at first when it happened on draft day, I was like, oh, are you kidding me? And then about a day or two later, I was like, that was the right move. Probably the guy, they're a run first offense. The guy wanted all the money in the world. It pissed Tannehill off, but at the same time, you got to play better, Tannehill. And they at least got a very good receiver in the draft. So from Arkansas there. So here's the thing. A lot of people are getting cute and betting the Jaguars. So before I'm going to give you a play, I'm going to see what you have in the AFC South.
Well, I'm going to go with the Colts. I don't know why the Colts actually don't go out and get at least draft a quarterback. I'm kind of puzzled about that. They have a lot of good pieces as a team. I think their defense will be their defense hasn't been bad the last several years. A couple of years ago, there was actually they had a really good defense, but their defense is still solid across the board, like what they have there. Obviously, Jonathan Taylor, the running game's in good hands. Matt Ryan, 6 years removed from a MVP, not the quarterback that he used to be, but I think what they're looking for is somebody that doesn't make mistakes, somebody that, seemingly can still play, and having a running game, which is a great thing for an older quarterback to have. I think that's a big plus. So just with the different pieces and components that they have, Tennessee seems to be on the way down. Jacksonville, we still have to see something from them. Houston's a disaster. We don't nothing to like there. I just look at the Colts and I say, this is still it's a solid club. I think to win this division, I don't think it's going to take more than 10 wins to win it. And if any team, who's the first team that I can see getting to 10 wins? I think it's the Colts. So I'm going to go with this team. And if the receiving core happens to work together with Ryan and he develops a rapport with them, it's a young group. And if they develop a rapport, though, by midseason or something, this team's going to be pretty dangerous, maybe come playoff time. I like the Colts to get the job done and reach 10 wins, making them an overplay for me.
I don't disagree with that. And I like Jonathan Taylor so much, as you know, as a Badger. Right. And I do question their offensive line a little bit. And I question Matt Ryan. I love the coach, Frank Reich. Their defense should be good. As a matter of fact, they're like the third or fourth fantasy drafted defense I'm noticing right
Okay.
now, which makes me really scratch my head. Probably because they're in that division, I guess. But no, I don't disagree with that. And a lot of people think the Jaguars have a chance at plus 700, but I like Doug Peterson for coach of the year at plus 1800, because if this team sniffs the playoffs, if they get the wild card, I don't see how you cannot give coach of the year to Doug Peterson after getting fired in Philly, coming back, bring this team to the playoffs. You can win this and lose the division bet and still get your 18-1. I like Peterson here at 18-1, and I think you're going to have some options throughout the season. You know, there's going to be some other you can have some outs, is what I'm trying to say. You can possibly bet another coach of the year if you kind of see him creeping up, but 18-1 gives you a lot of room, Doug.
Yeah, I like that as well. I think you made a smart choice with that one. And he's the type of coach. He's obviously a player's coach. He does a lot of things that they like to do. You can question some of his decision making along the way. That's his choice, and that's how he wants to coach. So that's how he's going to coach. So from that standpoint, that's fine. But it'll get this team excited. And after last year's disaster, I think they could definitely be improved. I guess I would just like to see some of it first, before. But for a preseason move with what you're talking about for a coach of the year and a team that could be on the rise, you know what? There's, of any team that you want to look at, I think potentially they have the best, let's just say, upside of the lower tier teams.
Fair enough. Let's move on to the AFC East, and I have nothing. I mean, the Buffalo Bills. All I know is that I don't like Miami as much as other people, and I'll probably be fading them in certain situations. I'm not quite ready to take their under season win total 9. I think it's, but the talent, they could get to 9, but it's just I just think that Tua, left-handed quarterback, is overhyped right now. I think Tyreek Hill, way different getting balls thrown from Tua than Mahomes right now. I think he can be a little bit of a pissant during the season if he's not getting his share. You got some receivers there, a lot of guys from Bama. And then you got the Jets, which supposedly had the greatest draft, but has that ever mattered with the Jets, right? They kind of just waste their guys there. I'm not taking over on the Jets. I'm not taking on. I think the Jets, my number is like 5.8 for season wins. So I have no play. Any thoughts?
All right. Well, I'm going to disagree with you a little bit on the Miami. I'm not on Miami Dolphins. I'm not over excited about the Miami Dolphins. I'm not going to lie to you. But I would agree there is not much else to like. And so again, this is the least of the evils on this one. I get the whole Tua haters thing, but he, and it seems to be it's more with him mentally than physically, seemingly some of his problems, because he can throw we saw in Alabama, he can throw a great deep ball. Okay. And he's done it at Miami as well. He's just not consistent. So there just seems to be a little something here, and maybe a different type of coaching, let's say maybe a better quarterback relationship with one of his coaches could be the difference. I mean, the weapons are there now. I mean, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Gesicki at tight end. I mean, there's enough to like there. But as I mentioned this before already, but when you have a quarterback, to me, that is, let's just say, middle of the road or to back end, a quarterback, he's got to have a running game. And so if he has a running game, that makes the play action pass game stronger, deep ball more effective. So they were 30th last year running the ball. The Dolphins were. If they get to 20th, I mean, I'm not looking for them to go, just crazy, but if they can get to 20th, I think that's going to improve that offense dramatically. And so I think they'll be in good shape. Defense was solid last year. I keep saying solid. They were good last year, ranked 15th overall. But the thing is, they closed 8-1, okay, after a 1-7 start. I think there's enough here for this team to get to 9 wins. I saw them for 8.5. I think they can get to 9 wins. Not going to be enough to win the division, but I think this team is still good enough. I think they're improved enough. And from all the reports of this coach, this McDaniel, this coach, he's supposedly a really good players coach. And so we'll see, but I'm going to go that way. Okay. In this division. And I'll stick my neck out there as opposed to you having to pass.
Yeah, I'm more fading this team, man. But I'll tell you, it's funny. You got Josh McDaniels and Mike McDaniel, so you got to add the S for the Broncos. Mike,
There you go. That's right. You're right.
That's gonna mess some people up this year. Just remember that. Um, yeah, I mean, I don't like their offensive line. That's really my issue too. Terran Armstead, Liam Eichenberg, Connor Williams. I think that's where they suffered last year, and they went 8-1 last year, but they also had the easiest schedule in the NFL
Yes.
last year. So, great finish, and they figured out the defense. They started blitzing, but they got rid of their defensive coach. So, lots of questions for me there. Let's move on. And what's left? We have the AFC West. Man, this is where all the action is. You got the Kansas City Chiefs saying, "Hey, Tyreek, you know what? You're good, but you're going to slow down over the years, and we'll pick up a couple guys, Juju Smith-Schuster there, we'll draft a few, and then we'll let you go bye-bye because Patrick Mahomes is the best, and our coach eats cheeseburgers and loves them." And then you got the Chargers that should have made the playoffs and completely blew it at the end of the season. I mean, that was a crumble almost as bad as the Colts last year. Yeah, I guess we could have said the Colts was the team to make the playoffs this year, right? Jesus. They better make the playoffs, both these teams. The Raiders certainly improved with Devontae Adams, but you got a new coach there. And I thought their interim coach did great last year. Personally, I was like kind of thinking, why didn't you hire him? I was like, you got this team motivated. They made the playoffs with nothing. But, their Pythag was way low, just like you said. And then you got the Broncos with Russell Wilson. And I love my Badgers and I love Russell Wilson, but I also think that he's kind of I just almost feel like the kid works hard, but I just feel like his care is a little bit more towards his social media outlets than his football team in a way. That injury to Patrick hurt. I made a bet that the Denver will go on under 10 wins. And I like that bet. And I don't care if they have a fourth place schedule. It's still the AFC, which is tough. So they'll get their win against the Jets, maybe Jacksonville. I don't know. But I played the Chargers to win the division at plus 250, and I played the Chiefs to win the division at plus 175. Your blended odds is 112.5 because you're getting plus money on the two best teams to win. So I found that nugget. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's a good strategy on that one. As I mentioned, the team that I'm going to go against is the Las Vegas Raiders. I said the minus 65-point differential, third head coach in a year, third different head coach in a year, third different defensive coordinator in a year. So that changes a lot of dynamics of what's going on with this team. You could make, Derek Carr, good quarterback, probably maybe slightly above average overall, but likely or at worst, the fourth best quarterback in the division also. I mean, there's a lot of talented quarterbacks in this division that can win a lot of games. I can't pull the trigger on this team. I just don't think it's that good. I think there's things that they have to overcome in a really hard division. Their total is 8.5. I think they're just going to be an 8-9 team. They'll likely lose some games they should win, okay, or could win, and because that's just who the Raiders are. And so from that standpoint, I'm going to go under with them and for this particular aspect for betting.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's been fading the Raiders over the years because of their travel schedule and stuff, and the Raiders just kept conquering. It just blows my mind. But now they're switching coaches, and my thought with the Raiders is I'm going to bet them probably as a dog. I think as a dog, they come in vicious, like they did to the Cowboys last year, like they did the Steelers the very first game of the season. It's just right. They come in, but when they're a favorite, then forget it. I think this is kind of like you're a favorite of the Raiders. I mean, they were a dog to the Eagles, I believe, when they played at home, and then they beat the Eagles. It was just some crazy games. What the Raiders pulled out last year, but that's just kind of what my anecdotal thoughts are on the Raiders. So I'm just excited for some football, man. And we got the Hall of Fame game coming up this weekend, which the Raiders are involved with. So we'll see how much time Derek Carr plays. We just found out that Jake Luton's going to be playing the whole game for the Jaguars because Trevor Lawrence is sitting out, and Beathard is still got a little injury, but Luton, I kind of like him. So we'll see how that is. But real quick before we go, Doug, I have to ask you, Who's going to win the college football national championship, Alabama or Ohio State?
Well, if those are the two choices, and it's hard to say that those aren't the two best choices, I'm going to take Alabama, and I'm just going to take them for this reason. I think that defensively they're stronger. I think this team, I could be wrong on this, but I think this team is going to be better than the last two teams that they've had. One of them won a national championship. I think the offensive line will be stronger. I think there's more depth on defense. I think there's more speed on defense and more power, especially in the defensive line. So I like Alabama to once again, with Nick Saban, do the job. I'm not a fan of Ohio State's defense. I like Jim Knowles as their new defensive coordinator a great deal, but I think there's just going to be a transition period. I don't think it's going to come all together. If they're in the championship game, no surprise if those two teams are facing off against one another, because offensively they're going to be unstoppable. But I think Alabama's defense is the difference in why they win the national championship.
You know me. I'm going with the Big Ten, baby. I'm going Ohio State Buckeyes here. I mean, after what they did to Utah in that Rose Bowl, one of the best. The Rose Bowls have been so dang good over the past 10 years, man. What an exciting show that was. That was probably, I mean, that made their playoffs actually look kind of bad. It was a Rose Bowl. It was all about that, but it was so fun watching. And Ohio State's defense did stink. And I think that is just embarrassing for them, but they're still the 5-star caliber team that's coming in. They also returned their quarterback. They returned. I like Knowles. I think he's going to come in and fix it, because I think that's what he did at Oklahoma State. He kind of gave them heart and gave them the ability to beat the Oklahomas and Texases and things like that. So I'm going to give it to Ohio State, and I'm going to give it to them because I got 6-1 early in the year. Now it's down to 3-1. So I got to root for my bet, and I won't be edging that till the very final game. I'm either to lose it, or I'm going to wait till the very final game, and I'm just going to maybe put a unit on the other side. Try to get my money back plus like a dime or something. So we'll see what happens, Doug. But, I'm excited for this football season. But, man, where could our listeners get your great information and plays?
Okay, where you can do that? Well, it's Doug Upstone, just like it sounds, at docsports.com. Coming up on 3 years that I have been at Docs and been in the industry a long time in a variety of roles, mostly as a handicapper, but doing a lot of different things. When it comes to football, I've won the last 2 years at Docs, and I've won 4 of the last 5. When I say football, I'm talking about college and pro. Last year had a super year in the NFL, 45-31, up over $5,800 based on units. Year before, I closed fantastic in college football at 40-22, up I think it was $5,700 in terms of units. So strong record, a lot of number one titles, a lot of top 10 finishes in monitors, because I still get my picks monitored at a variety of sites to prove that, hey, I'm competing with everybody from that standpoint. If you're looking for something different out of a Doug Upstone, also, you can go to bookmakersreview.com. And I write a column 3 times a week. It's called The Pulse, and we cover a lot of aspects of betting in all areas and some other kind of fun stuff as well. I'm doing college previews right now there. Each conference covering kind of the top teams, what teams to look for to win it, or dark horses, and just a variety of topics. So, hey, you know what? Kiev's trying to take my title as the hardest working guy in sports handicapping. So he keeps the pressure on me. I got to keep going. And so I'm just trying to keep him away. Okay. A little bit. He's coming up fast on me with how well his website and everything is doing and all the stuff he's doing. So congratulations to you, Kiev. Love to see a hardworking guy like yourself doing it too. And we're having a lot of fun at the same time.
Well, you certainly set a high standard, Doug. Thank you so much for the kind words, my man. Can't wait to get into the football season and see all of your wonderful articles at all of the sites that you just mentioned. You take care this weekend, and we'll be texting.
That sounds great, Kia. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.